So welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. You guys all had a very good Christmas, spent time with loved ones, made use of the break because the UFC grind is going to be back on. Even got like regional shows every other week. So, MMA is a very kind of, it's a grind. Trenches week in, week out, taping these fights, finding spots where you can put your money into. So, got to make use of some time off. And hope you guys didn't eat too much turkey and you didn't get too fat over the Christmas period. You could enjoy the moments with your friends, family, loved ones. And it's good to get the UFC back on. Put our money into opportunities. And grind's going to continue. We'll get to the video. You guys want to jump in on patreon.com/MMA Lewis. Get access to see what I'm putting my money into. Get access to my personal bets, my analysis, my breakdowns. I share my most trusted bets. You get access to my written breakdowns. So get exclusive access to all my insights beforehand and my bets where I'm putting my racks into. Whether you're trying to make your own bets or you just want a tail, I think it could be a very good addition to your betting portfolio. And some weeks I might miss a week or two or three on YouTube because YouTube is a grind, man. Like if you guys start your own channel, realize that it's a lot of effort that goes into it. So might not always have time to put out the breakdowns, etc. But on Patreon, still get access to those on missing weeks. And whether you need personalized betting advice, strategies tailored to your own preferences, your own risk tolerance, need help kind of building your own system for consistent betting success, like I have. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into the breakdowns. And if you don't want to sign up, that's cool. That's not a problem. But make sure to at least like the video, share the video. Without further ado, let's get right into the breakdowns. Right, so for this fight here, we got Klein versus Dudakova. Now, Klein, there's a lot of hype on her, 100%. And, going into her debut against Jasmine Vidius, that's obviously a tough debut. Let's get that kind of big step up in competition. Going from the regionals, you're facing a girl who's a lot bigger, right? And she took that fight on short notice. She definitely got big brothered by Jasmine, 100%. Jasmine looked kind of 2 weight classes above. She just out grappled her, just out physicaled her, dominated her everywhere the fight went, really. Klein landed a few nice shots, but it was too much, really. And even though, in hindsight, Jasmine looked minus 1,000, 1.10, there was enough respect on the Klein side that there was a ton of Klein action. The line was fairly tight. And overall, I do think Klein is a talented fighter. I think she does look good overall. I think her striking's decent. And I think her offensive wrestling and takedown entries are good. Good entries, good shots. I definitely feel like she's a little bit kind of undersized overall. No, I mentioned the Jasmine fight, but obviously that's weight class above. I think the size, the kind of physicality is probably going to come through, as she gets older. And, another thing, I suppose, she's kind of a close associate of Erin Blanchfield, probably getting in good work with Blanchfield. And yeah, it's good to have that as like a mentor, as a friend, help guide you, etc, etc, etc. Now, this fight here, we see, go to the line. Okay, so Klein is a 1.11 favorite. Now, this to me, I think if you got that opener 1.44 and a 1 maybe 40, that kind of line is a bit more fair to me. This line here at the moment, I have to pass it. Pass on Klein, even though I do think she's sharper, faster, kind of more agile, more talent, more upside, more potential. I think she can kind of dig deeper, plus the cardio more Klein. So she has a lot of good things going for her in this fight. I do think she's overall kind of the more skilled fighter. At 1.10, that's a steep line. I don't think there's any value left on the line. I think all the values kind of be extracted on the market. I think at this point, you have to kind of just pass, or you have to look at the underdog, maybe look at like a prop or something. But even then, Klein decisions, the odds are not going to be great. The reason why I probably pass at this moment is because, she's still a young fighter, not fully developed. She hasn't actually got a win inside the UFC. So these are all things that you kind of have to consider when you look at a betting price. So Klein's going to obviously be the pick, but from a betting perspective, I'd have to, leave it alone. Especially now, I think all the value's been extracted. All right, so next fight here, we got Gus versus Parsons. I'll start with Gus. Gus, he's a very, very kind of aggressive fighter. He's a fighter who kind of relies on his physicality, his size, being like a bulldozer. He loves using a clinch on his opponents. I think skill for skill, he's not really like top class anywhere. He's just more like a bulldozer. So like when it comes to his striking and stuff, I go, yeah, like that's a really, really kind of sharp, clean striker. Or I go like, yeah, that's a really, really nice Pakistani grappler. I'll go more like, yeah, this guy's a brute. He's a powerhouse. Come forwards, be aggressive, really try and put damage on his opponents. But, because he's putting himself in the firing line, can be hit there for the counters. And, his striking's not the best. So his striking defense is not the best, sorry. So he can get hit himself. But Parsons, on the other hand, he's kind of similar in a way, but he's a consistent kind of, say he's like a grinder more. But he likes to kind of like push his opponent, like go for takedowns, kind of grind on his opponents, consistently shoot, just like really, really go for the takedowns, kind of like prime Colby Compton style, except for he lacks like the real kind of athleticism and the physicality to make it really, really work at a high level. That's the issue with Parsons, and we kind of saw that with the Aoba and Elliott fight. Even though that kind of game, I do like that kind of prototype of fighter. With him, issue is he just lacks the kind of the athleticism, physicality to really, really take it to the top half of the division. Now he's also kind of more proven in this fight, right? We've seen him face a way, way higher level of caliber of opponent. Even in the regionals, he fought Ignacio Bahamondes, fought Mike Perry back in the day. Inside the UFC, he's faced a tougher strength of schedule. So I think when it comes to striking, I mean, I probably think Parsons is probably a better striker, like better footwork, better movement, kind of more refined. But I imagine Gus, he's just gonna kind of bulldoze, come forwards, really, really try and take Parsons' head off. So, I mean, I only researched this one like yesterday. I'm still kind of like marinating my thoughts. But we'll go to the betting line. I mean, let's try and open up fight odds. If I look at my monitor quickly. Yeah, I mean, 1.53, like I said, I'm a little bit undecided on this one. I don't know really who to lean, but I'm not touching Gus at 1.53. Like, that's something I'm pretty kind of cautious of. I don't think it's a great line. I think he's not entirely sold on him. I'm not really entirely sold on Gus. So I can't be laying that kind of price tag on Gus in this kind of matchup. So that's out of the equation. I suppose you kind of have to look at the dog, maybe from a betting wise perspective. In the line's it's a bit wide. I think Gus is not proven enough. I don't think he's technically refined enough to be kind of worthy of his price. Like maybe just bulldozes through Parsons, makes it look easy, or maybe Parsons just kind of hustles him, outgrinds him, etc. But yeah, I'm not too passionate about that price tag on Gus. Line, and I'll probably have the lines a lot tighter. But from a pick prediction standpoint, like I said, still kind of thinking about this one, still a little bit kind of undecided on whether to have like a real concrete read on it. But only how I'm feeling at the moment, I'm not passionate about backing Gus. at odds of 1.53. So next fight here, we got Ashmush versus Aliev. Now, Aliev last fought 2 years ago, basically, against Alves. I wish they kept Alves inside the UFC. You know, he's a very, very kind of entertaining fighter. You know, I think he's good, very athletic. So I have no idea why the UFC cut him. But anyways, I'm going off topic. So last fight was 2 years ago. I looked up a bit. He was recovering from like a leg injury. He was meant to fight Rebecca, but I got cancelled. So that's something to keep in mind. You know, he might have some ring rust coming into the fight. So his game, he has a very, very kind of strong wrestling game, almost like a Dagestani when it comes to the shots, the wrestling, the top pressure, and overall, from what I see, I like his wrestling, man. I think his wrestling really, really good. His striking's competent. He kind of reminds me of Habib. Obviously, maybe not to that level, but and also his nickname's the Eagle, right? So I think he takes a lot of inspiration from Habib, and the way he strikes is kind of Habib-esque, and uses his striking to set up his wrestling, takedown entries, and I think he takes, as mentioned, takes a lot of inspiration from Habib. But overall, when I put it all together, I like what I see with the wrestling, top pressure, the top control. Now, Ashmus, on the other hand, he's mainly a striker. He fights with his hands down low. He likes to fight on the outskirts. He likes to kind of use his lateral movement and just likes to kind of keep his range. Got taken down by Chris Duncan. And I think he's a good mid-level fighter. Don't love him against grapplers, but I think against other kind of mid-level grapplers, he can do all right. So, prediction, I have to go with Aliev here. I really, really like his wrestling. I think his game is very, very tricky. It's going to, that kind of wrestling, top pressure kind of style that he brings, it's going to, cause, I feel, a lot of issues for guys inside our division. Maybe not at that top echelon, but that's this kind of mid-level range. I think he's going to do all right, and I think he has some upside. He has some potential. Obviously, I need to see a few more fights, see him kind of settle more into the UFC. But I think there's some upside, there's some talent, there's some potential there on that side. So yeah, I'm gonna have to pick him. But we go to the betting line. Odds are like 1.22. So I mean, I'll probably be more willing to kind of get behind this price tag if it wasn't for that layoff. Almost 2 year layoff kind of just gives me a little bit of concerns just because you don't really know. Maybe he's gonna have some ring rust coming in, and he might not be as sharp. But at the same time, he could be making improvements. He could look better than ever. And this kind of price tag just tells me, look, there's a hype tax here. I'm not going to be getting any discounts to be able to bet him. But I do have to agree with Aliev as the more likely winner. And overall, just prepare his game. Yeah, Aliev's going to be the pick, but I think the betting line's tight, man. You're not getting any real discounts to be able to back him. As mentioned, if it wasn't for the 2 year layoff, I'd be a little bit more confident. But yeah, and Ashmush, he's not a bum by any means necessarily. Right? He's not an awful, terrible fighter. So never know, right? These fights, they can play out competitive. But overall, Aliev. All right, so we got a classic striker versus grappler matchup. I'll work out whether to look at my monitor or look at my MacBook here, but we'll look at my MacBook. I think it's better if I look at you guys directly. So this is a classic striker versus grappler matchup dynamic. You've got Ernesta here, who's the striker. She comes from I believe a swimming background. Her mother was a swimmer. So she kind of comes from an athletic background. You got Ari, probably butchering that name, but she's predominantly a grappler. Ernesta, she's going to want to keep the fight standing, defend the takedowns, work her way back up to the feet. Nicole, she's going to be at a quite big size and reach disadvantage. She's going to have to close the distance, get some takedowns, wind up on top, and grind out a decision or look for a possible finish. Ernesta, she's an okay kickboxer. I do think she's quite raw, which is fine. I mean, she's only what 5-1 as a fighter, so she's definitely lacking in full experience. And I see it in her. I do see some upside. I do see some potential, but you can kind of see like she's a little bit raw. Like historically, her ground game before the Barbosa fight is it looked quite weak when she could get taken down, she could get controlled. And going to that Barbosa fight, I think everyone kind of thought, yeah, Ernesta's probably going to get dominated on the ground. But against Barbosa, I thought she made some improvements. You can see that probably visibly working on this area, but it's not 100% fully developed yet. But of course, fight to fight, it could be getting better, right? So yeah, overall, when I put it all together on the Ernesta side, I'm seeing like a raw, inexperienced young fighter who does have some like upside, has some potential. Mainly uses kickboxing, push a pace, uses durability, overwhelm our opponents with pressure, putting a high pressure, kickboxing them. But she needs to obviously work on a defensive grappling aspect of the game if she wants to go really, really far in the game. So this fight here, I think Ernest is probably going to have a clear advantage striking, especially with a reach advantage. So Calorari, I do have some unknowns about Calorari just because not really like a lot of footage on her. A lot of her fights are like quick finishes, very, very low level competition. There's not really a lot of footage in her. But MMA is a wild game, right? We'll go to the betting line in a second, but one trip, one kind of slip, one takedown, one kind of stumble, Ernesta slips, Calorari gets on top. Ernesta's might look like a fish from bottom, so yeah. But overall, I feel like there's a little bit of guesswork here, but I'm gonna have to lean towards Ernesta with a striking advantage. Probably likely goes to a decision as well. Don't really see it finishing this one. But we go to the betting line. She's what 1.36. Yeah, like if you got some of the earlier lines, got that kind of opener, you got around maybe 1.71. At this kind of line, I'm not too passionate about betting Ernesta because I do think she's quite raw. I do think she is inexperienced. I do think her ground game is a weakness. It's not ground game is not a strong area in the game. As I mentioned before, one trip, one slip up, Calorari gets on top. That could be the round. So I feel like I'm paying up a bit of a premium here at this kind of line. I'm not too passionate about a bet, but if you got some of the earlier lines, I think you could maybe justify a bet here. But for me, it's probably going to be a pass from a betting perspective. All right, next fight here, we got possibly what could be quite a violent fight. It's probably going to be a boring decision. We got Lopez versus Magomed. Gadzi, sorry, bro. I butchered that name. I'm not going to bother speaking it. So, Lopez and some LFA mainly looks to be a striker. He can mix up some wrestling, mix up some BJJ. Magomed, he's pretty well rounded as well in that kind of aspect. Strike mainly got like a space style of striking from what I've seen, and against Ribeiro, I kind of went through some adversity. Leg got chopped up a bit, but showcased good wrestling entries, good wrestling takedowns, and ended up on top, etc., etc., etc. So I think overall, as a Dagestani, he's pretty well rounded. I like how he's probably got wrestling in his back pocket here. So MMA math is obviously not too reliable. You can never really fully trust it. But I thought I'll mention it anyways. Ribeiro knocked out Lopez round one, and Magomed won a clear 29-28 over him. So MMA math alone, right? Magomed's the side. But jokes aside here, I'm gonna have to pick Magomed here. Just yeah, I think kind of I prefer him everywhere the fight goes. I prefer striking. I prefer his wrestling. I prefer his grappling. And I just think he has more kind of upside in this division. So Magomed's going to be the pick. Betting perspective, see some money's coming on Lopez. Maybe I'm missing something here, but can't really get behind Lopez. Magomed's probably a side for me. It's up to you guys. Like, I don't know if you want to bet 1.56, but yeah, Magomed's going to be the pick. Say confidence level medium. Just prefer his striking, prefer his grappling. Just think it's better, all well rounded. So, yeah. And I just have a gut feeling that he might be like a tier or two above Bruno. So next fight here, we got battle of the flyweights. Flyweights, obviously one of my favorite divisions. Big fan of this division. But we've got Jose Johnson here, who was mainly like a bantamweight, and he somehow managed to cut the weight down to 125 against Assu. Obviously, Assu is a tough fighter, right? Grappler. Historically, the defensive grappling aspect has been Jose Johnson's weakness. But he somehow made the weight, but I'm a little bit skeptical on Jose Johnson, being able to consistently make the weight to 125 in the long term. It's a big flyweight, sort of 6 foot, got big reach. So I'm a little bit iffy on that. Obviously, he's quite lean, he's quite skinny, but something I'm going to keep in the back of my mind. Maybe keep an eye on weigh-ins, but I imagine he's probably going to make the weight. So Jose, he's mainly a striker. He likes to use his range. He likes to use his size. He likes to use like long range kind of attacking weapons. Deeps, that kind of thing. Because he knows he's got a size advantage over most of these guys inside the division. He likes to use those kind of God-given abilities. But as mentioned, I think I mentioned it, but his ground game is the kryptonite. He seems to kind of really struggle with the defensive grappling aspect of MMA big time. I do think he is improving in this area. I do think he's making developments. I do think he knows hey, I need to work on my grappling. Striking's decent, but if I want to go far. So I do think he's been working on this area of the fight game, but overall I do think it's quite weak. Historically, he can get taken down, he can get controlled. I know he can get some reverses and stuff, but it's just been going on ongoing trend throughout his fights, just getting taken down, getting controlled. I know he got dominated by Assu. Assu's very, very high level, but yeah, even in the regionals, etc., this is just an ongoing kind of weakness that I see in this game. So I do think he's decently athletic, but flyweight's a hard division. Unfortunately, I don't see him becoming a top tier flyweight, but if he proved me wrong, he proved me wrong, right? So Bunez or Burns? I think it's Bunez. Bunez, he's kind of got like a more traditional kind of Muay Thai kind of kickboxing game. Obviously, Joshua Man's a slow starter. But he was winning most of round one, got takedown on Josh Van, briefly got him out. Obviously, kind of Josh Van kind of took over in round 2, round 3, and Bunez unfortunately kind of collapsed. I'm not really seeing like a top tier striker with Bunez, but Paul looks all right. I see some of his other fights. He's got a really, really nice spinning back kick. Obviously, I don't normally recommend spinning stuff, but I was like, whoa, that's a nice spinning kick. I don't know how effective it's going to be here against here, but I mention it. Apparently, he's a BJJ black belt, so I do think he has some grappling. I've seen some fights where especially in this fight here, he's probably going to want to utilize some wrestling, utilize some grappling, utilize some BJJ. He's a BJJ black belt, and seen some nice wrestling shots and nice wrestling entries. And even though Jose's improving, I imagine he'd probably still get taken down. Still probably going to be a weakness in this game. Even if Jose's doing a really, really good job of defending the takedowns, if Bunez is kind of consistent with the takedowns throughout the fight, one kind of trip, one kind of slip up, just kind of one good, nicely timed takedown, and Jose Johnson could be on his back, and that could be enough to kind of steal the moment, steal the round, etc. Even though Bunez is 35, maybe he's joining the UFC a little bit late. 35 for a flyweight is quite old. My gut says that this guy has been making developments, but it's a little bit of assumption there. So obviously this fight here, Johnson, I imagine he's going to want to keep the fight standing, utilize his striking advantages, and kind of pressure on Bunez. I think Bunez is going to want to strike, keep the fight competitive. Probably thinks he can outstrike Johnson. But I imagine if he's smart, he might mix up some takedown. Even if he's doesn't fully commit with him, just enough to kind of throw Jose off. Now, Johnson's normally going to have like a big reach advantage over all the flyweights, but these two had the exact same reach. But Johnson has a couple inches of height over PWNS. So I would probably have Johnson as a favorite. So yeah. But from a betting perspective, odds of 1.54. Jose Johnson is not really the type of guy that I can really trust at this kind of line. I would probably have him as a favorite, but this is a floor fight. He's got what, 9 losses. I don't want to disrespect win-loss records. It can be deceiving, but he does have 9 losses. So this guy, he knows how to lose a fight. Ground game's a weakness, you know. So I'm not really kind of rushing out to bet him ever, really. Especially at this kind of chalk line. Maybe he could come in, look amazing, look value. Maybe someone comes to me with a certain piece of information in this matchup and goes, yeah, switch to pick to PWNS or switch to pick to Johnson, etc., etc., etc. But my gut says Johnson kind of grinds this one out, but I'm not really loving the betting price, and Johnson's not really ever the guy that I really want to be laying heavy kind of price tags on. I just think he's too full of a fighter, and he's shown too many weaknesses in his game past. So next fight here we got Ogden versus Moises. Now Ogden is kind of low key one of my favorite fighters. Cashed on him last time around against who's guy's name's skipping my mind, but yeah, Ogden. You know, this guy's a weasel. Like, I say that with all due respect. He's almost kind of like too clever for the fight game. He's a coach, so I think I've seen his interviews and stuff. He does a lot of like kind of tape study on his opponents, like really kind of digs deep. Watches like their last six fights. I think he's got a really good mind for MMA, and he's a fighter who uses his brain, which I love, right? Because he's not like the most like athletically gifted fighter. He's not like a freak athlete monster. Comes from Africa. You know, he's roiding up steroids. It's just like he's just kind of like a blue collar guy. He's realized, look, I'm not going to be able to compete with these guys athletically, so I have to use my brain. I have to come up with good game plans. So yeah, really like Ogden. Loki, one of my favorite fighters. So when it comes to striking, though, he likes to fight on the outside, take as little risk as possible, kind of counter strike, fight on the outskirts, use his footwork, use his movement, maybe like come in and out. I think he's a all right striker, but I definitely feel like this guy, he does not like getting hit at all. I can just see I get the vibe like he's aware of the dangers of fighting, you know, long term with health, and I get the vibe like he is very kind of afraid of getting hit, and yeah, because of that, he likes to take as little risk as possible when it comes to striking. I think he's an all right striker, but I think his lack of willingness to go to war is gonna kind of stop him from being like a top tier striker. When it comes to his wrestling, when it comes to grappling, I think he's got good kind of timings for his takedowns. He's a fighter who likes to mix up the wrestling, mix up the grappling. I think he feels a lot safer. And when he's on top of his opponents, I do think he's very heavy on there. So, yeah. Do you have some concerns about Ogden's cardio? Round 3 against Loic, you know, he visibly slowed down. I know a lot of people score that fight for Loic, but it was a clear 29-28 for Ogden. So when I put it all together, as a fighter, he likes to use his brain, likes to be very smart, very strategic, likes to take as little risk as possible when it comes to striking, and then he likes to mix up some wrestling, grappling, get on top of his opponents, and you know, I think he's a competent top player when it comes to the BJJ grappling aspect of the game, but I don't see him like a top tier elite level grappler, which is fine. Like, not everyone's going to beat the next Habib or right, but yeah, what I mentioned now. So saw his interview. Normally, I don't really watch interviews and stuff, but with Ogden, yeah, I think he has a very sharp mind for the fight games. He said he's gonna want to take the fight to Moises, and I think he said he wants to mix up some wrestling, mix up some grappling. Obviously, you got to take everything they say in interviews with a pinch of salt. But I thought I'll mention that kind of piece of information. I think also another thing that Ogden could do is kind of slow the pace of the fight down, kind of look to frustrate Moises. So we go to Moises now. I'm kind of worried about Moises' confidence overall. I think his confidence is probably low, taking some tough losses. Obviously, he's been in UFC for a long time. For like a really good resume of guys inside the division. Yeah, so Moises overall though, he's a well-rounded fighter. Striking's been developing over the years. Obviously, striking's not really his forte. He's got decent boxing, decent low kicks, and he kind of blends his striking with his wrestling and BJJ game. I do think that's where his strengths lie. It's the wrestling, the BJJ, the grappling. I think he's quite a competent BJJ black belt. So yeah. So also another thing that worries me about Moises, I don't think he's the most durable fighter. He can get hurt by big hitters. We've seen that historically in Alves, BSD. So how I think that fight's going to go, this is a tricky fight to call. Struggling with this one. But I'd really kind of dial in on a particular side here. I think this is a competitive fight. I think both fighters are pretty solid, pretty skilled. I mean, I probably would have Moises as a slight betting favourite, but I can definitely see Ogden. I see Ogden as a potential live dog here, but Moises as a slight betting favourite kind of makes sense to me. If I was a bookmaker and I was setting this line, that's kind of how I line it as well. But yeah, I think it's going to be a competitive fight where one guy probably edges it out, or I think we could see a scenario where maybe Moises is just better everywhere when it comes to MMA. Just clearly the better striker, maybe clearly the better grappler. Or I think we could see a scenario where kind of Ogden is just too smart for Moises, comes in with a really good game plan, maybe frustrates Moises on the feet, mixes up the wrestling, mixes up the grappling, gets on top. We can see that kind of scenario. But if I was lining it, would probably have Moises as a slight favourite, but not really one I'm kind of rushing out to bet, really, from a betting perspective. It's probably going to be a pass. Maybe, I don't know, who knows, maybe someone comes to me with that piece of information, flip my side, be more concrete. But yeah, pass fight for me from a better perspective. So we've got Tulio versus Ihor Poteria. This fight here, obviously Tulio's a big favourite. UFC, they don't do Poteria any favours. They just kind of push him to certain prospects to kind of build their name off. Poteria, now, from what I see from Tulio, he looks okay, but I'm struggling to get to a 1.20 price tag here. It's his debut, and I think he's decent, but I'm not seeing like an exceptional talent here. I mean, I would probably have Tulio as the favourite. I know everyone's really low on Poteria. Market doesn't really like him. The UFC clearly is not. They don't really like him either. And I'm definitely always cautious about Poteria's gas tank. His cardio, around that kind of 7.5 minute mark, he does slow down, but I'm not too passionate about price of, well, check the price now, around 1.22, I think. If I can find him, fight odds. Tulio, there we go. So he's around 1.20. Yeah, I can't really get too passionate about that price because I'm not really seeing exceptional talent. And I know everyone's really low on Poteria, so everyone kind of wants to fade Poteria, but I don't really want to be putting this guy into my parlays at 1.20. If I was seeing like some exceptional talent, which he might be, he might come in, look absolutely phenomenal, be calling the next prospect inside the light heavyweight division or the middleweight. I can't remember, but yeah, 1.20. I'm all right. I'm happy to pass on this. Maybe if the line goes crazy, Poteria 7.0, 8.0, then I might have to have a little nibble. But with the idea that it's going to be more likely loser. Obviously, I think if you're going to target this one, I think the bookies will be switched on, but probably might be better to kind of target the live betting markets, see if Poteria can put together a good 7-8 minutes, and then if it looks like he's really slowed down, Tulio can come through, and you might want to target this fight from a live betting perspective. But pre-fight perspective, I'm happy to pass here for the time being. Maybe someone comes to me, look, Tulio, seen him train in the gym, he looks like a monster, or something along those lines. But yeah, can't really get behind the price tag. So next bout here, we got what could potentially be a very, very kind of violent fight. We got Puna Soriano versus Uros Medic. So with Puna, the heavy-handed southpaw boxer. I mean, I think he is pretty kind of powerful, and he really looks to kind of load up on his left-handed shots. And you know, he could definitely take his opponent's heads off with every strike that he throws. Like, he really goes for it. But overall, I kind of feel like his striking game is pretty limited. And the big issue with Puna is that he does slow down visibly after round 1, especially considering that he really kind of loads up on his strikes. He does come from a wrestling background. I can't remember exactly, but he came from like college wrestling. So we've seen him offensive wrestle like against Baeza, and I do think it is competent. But obviously the issue with Puna is his gas tank. So can you really kind of go for it consistently on a consistent basis against really high caliber opponents? I'm not so sure. Obviously, Puna is originally a 185er, but he had his debut against Baeza. I mean, he looked good at 170. He looked chiseled, and he looked like he kind of cut the weight properly, the weight well. I'm still a little bit kind of skeptical overall on Puna, because like, well, I did think he looked quite good against Baeza, but Baeza's, you know, Baeza's not really been the same fighter. He's coming off like a 2-year layoff. There was like retirement talks with Baeza, I believe. He's coming off injuries, so still a little bit kind of skeptical on Puna overall. Medic, actually, before, I'm kind of skeptical until I see more of him being able to perform to that basis in this brand new weight class before I can call him like a top prospect, or I can have a real concrete read on him. So Uros Medic, only a striker. He's got like a Muay Thai kickboxing style of striking. I'd say he's like an above average striker. He has like good footwork, decent striking, fair fighting on the outside. Definitely got a weakness when it comes to the defensive grappling aspects of MMA. So here in this fight, I imagine Puna will probably come forwards, look to kind of really kind of take Uros Medic's head out, really knock him out. Maybe even mix up some wrestling, mix up some grappling, try and bulldoze Medic, kind of take advantage of Medic's ground game. I imagine Medic is going to want to fight clean, technical, kind of keep Puna out of range, fight in the outskirts, not get dragged into these kind of dangerous brawls. And you know, if Puna does push the grappling and wrestling, work his way back up to the feet, defend the takedowns, and ideally, if I was in Medic's corner, I'd be like, look, try and take this fight into round 2, round 3, maybe T-pad a body, kind of look to slow Puna down, but always be on your P's and Q's, because Puna's really dangerous. But obviously, prediction standpoint, this one's a little bit tricky. I think live betting wise, you probably want to try and target Uros Medic. See if Puna's kind of slowing down, but you kind of don't want to get baited right into a live bet just to fade Puna. Maybe in this 170 weight class, he's going to look really good. He's going to be able to kind of fight hard for 3 rounds. I think last time around against Baeza, people were live betting Baeza after round 1. Kind of showed, yeah, for round 2, round 3, but then you could put it down to Baeza just being completely shot. But yeah, this fight here, I mean, kind of lean towards Uros Medic, but we'll go to the better line. Just have a slight preference towards his striking a bit more. I just trust his cardio more. I'm just not find Puna pretty untrustworthy, but at the same time, I'm not rushing out to kind of be all in on Medic. So we'll go to the better line. So Uros Medic is 1.54. I mean, it's not even showing. All right, cool. use your imagination, guys. So Uros Medic, it's around odds of 1.54. Now, the line's, I think the line's fair. I would have Medic as the favourite because, I do have concerns about Puna's gas tank overall. But at the same time, I'm not really kind of rushing out to bet Medic at this kind of price. I feel like the fight's dangerous enough, especially in round one. I'm not really entirely convinced with either guy. So, and I feel like I'm not getting like a really, really good price and deal on Uros Medic in what could be quite a dangerous fight. So I'm not rushing out the window to kind of bet Medic at 1.54. But at the same time, I'm not really looking to back Puna because I'm pretty kind of unsold on Puna overall. So yeah, I suppose that's an easy way of me saying it's probably going to be a pass fight unless there's going to be some drastic line movements on this matchup, or rather look to kind of target the line markets, or maybe someone comes to me and says the light bulb moment, clearly switch sides, or etc. But I would have Urus Medic as the favourite, but I think the line's kind of fair. So next bout here we got Ponzinibbio versus Carlton Harris. Now Pons, I remember not even that long ago, maybe like 5-6 years ago. Sorry if my years are off. This guy was considered a top prospect inside the welterweight division. He had a really, really strong meteoric rise. You could see it, and even I was like, "Yo, this guy's really, really good." But he had like I remember the exact, he had like a disease or something, and he returned, and he's just not being the same fighter at all. He kind of looks like a watered down version of himself. He's definitely a shell of his former self. He just looks way less sharper. His durability is just not there really anymore. But what he likes to do, he likes to kind of pressure his opponents, establish range control, likes to throw boxing volume combinations. He's got a nasty low calf kick. The calf kick was really, really nasty back in the day. I remember that Neil Magny fight, and he would just butcher Neil Magny's leg. But yeah, he's just not the same fight anymore. Even though he tries to kind of fight like how he used to with the pressure, establishing range control, using a low kick, boxing his opponents up. Just the chin's not there, and he's just way less sharper, way less quicker. And best way I could put it is just like a watered down version of his prime self. Now Harris, he's very, very kind of unorthodox with his striking. It's very, very kind of awkward. It's got these kind of looping punches, but his punches seem to have like a little bit of sting on them. Kind of similar with Ponzinibbio. I'm not really kind of convinced with Harris's chin either. I think he can get hurt. He does have some offensive grappling. I've seen him sink in chokes and sink in submissions. So how this fight's going to go, I think Pons is just going to do what he does. He's going to put the pressure on Harris. And while I think Harris would probably be counter-striking, but he might kind of want to establish dominance. But I imagine Pons is going to try and use the range control, put the pressure on Harris. I feel like Harris is a bit more kind of crispy and dangerous with his strikes currently. I think Pons would probably have better kind of volume, better pressure. Now, prediction standpoint, betting perspective, this fight's what? Pick'em, basically. Harris 1.85, Pons 2.20, 2.02, sorry. It's kind of like pick your poison. And I kind of agree with that kind of sentiment on the fight. This is definitely one that I'm not really looking to put money on him. I'm definitely not looking to bet Pons. I just really think he's been on a decline for ages. I really think his durability is going. He just looks way less sharper, way less quicker. So I don't want to be putting big money on Pons. So that's completely out of the equation. At the same time, Harris, yeah, I'm not entirely convinced with Harris. So it's a pretty easy pass for me from a betting perspective. So we got a low-key banger of a fight here. This is when I first scouting a card, this fight came up to me. I was like, I'm not really too excited, but when I looked into it, I was like, yeah, this is a good kind of interesting matchup. I'm really, really kind of dialed in for this one. I'll definitely be having my sparkling water, have my coffee ready for this one. I'm really, really looking forward to this. So we've got Austin Bashy versus C Rod, aka Christian Rodriguez. So this fight here, we got Bashy. You know, from what I see, this guy passes the eye test for me. Looks to be very, very kind of relentless wrestler. You know, which is a very, very high pace. You know what he kind of reminds me of? He reminds me of a prime Colby Covington. That kind of relentless wrestler, grappler. Even if the takedown's not great, even if the opponent gets brought back up to the feet and scrambles, constant relentless, ridiculously high pace, very determined. I don't think his top control is like the best, like a Dagestani style, but yeah, in prime Colby Covington, that's what he kind of reminds me of. Obviously, we faded Colby last time round, saw big clear decline. We're able to capitalize on that in the betting market, and obviously, I gave that out as a free bet. Anyways, enough bragging. You know, got to move on. Got to move on. But I thought I'd mention that because why not? You know, gotta enjoy the past wins. But you know, striking looks pretty sharp, looks pretty fast. But obviously, I think his striking is mainly used to set up his grappling. So even though this guy passes eye test for me, and I feel there's something there, you still kind of got to be kind of weary to an extent. You still kind of be kind of like he's a young fighter who's not really completely proven. We don't, if he's put on the back foot, we don't truly know how he's going to be able to handle adversity. If his opponents are constantly getting back up, etc., etc., etc. So even though I'm bullish, there's a little bit of a caution on my side as well. So putting it all together, like what I see from Bashy, but I do have some question marks, concerns, which I do think are valid, just because he hasn't faced the highest level of fighters inside the UFC. He's very, very young, etc., etc., etc. So C-Rod here, he's a solid fighter as well. You know, the UFC uses him to kind of test their prospects. And to be fair, he's kind of is a bit of a prospect buster. I think he lost that Bulgarian fight. And beat Rauses Jr., beat Simon. And, you know, he's got a good resume, I feel. He's traditionally a bantamweight, though. But he's a guy who's kind of been forced to move up to 145 because he just kept missing weight at 135. You know, just couldn't make the weight. I do think he is undersized for 145. That's something definitely keep in mind. And he did kind of get broken by a Rosa in his, I think it's his debut at 145. Obviously, I do like Rosa. Rosa very, very well rounded. Kind of, to me, kind of like Seaboard kind of adrenaline dumped in there. So his striking's competent. You know, what I think see from his striking I like. And he can get taken down by strong wrestlers. But he's kind of made a career out of being able to scramble, be an anti-grappler, make his opponents work, tie them out, and kind of take over as the fight progresses. So he mainly defends his takedowns through scrambling. So he might not go for an underhook, defend the takedown, use the fence, etc., etc., etc. But taken down, good scrambler. So yeah. Now, I would probably have Bashy as a favorite, you know, because he's got that kind of prototype of fighter that has taken rounds of Christian Rodriguez. And Bashy definitely has that kind of aura. The kids would like to say he's got that aura, and he definitely passes the eye test for me. But betting perspective, 1.43. Let's open up the lines. 1.43. Where's Bashy? Here we go. So at this kind of line, there's a height tax here. You're not getting a discount here. At the end of the day, right? What happens if Bashy goes for a takedown, Seedrod scrambling, Seedrod's made a career out of being an anti-wrestler. So, yeah, what happens if Bashy goes for adversity? What happens if he's forced to fight on the back foot? So, even though I would probably have Bashy as a slight favourite, probably would have him a favourite in this matchup, just because I've mentioned the fact that prototype of fight that's caused Seedrod issues in the past. Got that aura, he's a new kid on the block, you know, looks very, very relentless, looks very, very aggressive, passes the eye test. I do have some concerns. This is his biggest step up to date. So from a betting perspective, I'll probably pass on Bashy at this kind of line. Maybe throughout the week, get a bit more confident on Bashy. But it's just a little bit too unproven for me at this kind of betting line at the current moment, how I'm feeling. I think if I was going to bet C-Rod though, I think I'd almost rather wait for a live bet. I think waiting for a live bet is more optimal if I wanted to target the C-Rod side. Because even though C-Rod might be valued currently, Bashy just could be that next generation. Runs through C-Rod, makes it look easy, completely dominates, and makes light work in the office for Bashy. So if I bet C-Rod now, I'm not saying I'm betting C-Rod, but let's say I bet him, get 2.9, 2.8, and Bashy just runs through him, wins round one dominantly, then kind of throwing money away, right? So if I was going to target C-Rod, I'd rather wait for a live bet. I think that's more optimal. And from a pre-fight betting perspective, I would have Bashy as the favourite. But as mentioned, I do have some concerns. But that's enough for the first fight. For this fight, sorry. Move on to the next. So we got Cesar Almeida versus Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Now, Almeida, a few fights ago, I was a little bit more kind of bullish on him. I've just kind of gone cold on Almeida, to be honest with you. Even though I do think he's a solid kickboxer, I think he's very, very technically refined in that area, dangerous. I think he kind of just joined the MMA scene just a little bit too late. I do think he's done very, very well to kind of develop the grappling aspect, defensive grappling aspect of MMA game. Just I think he's a little bit too late. Thing about Almeida is I was kind of surprised how against Kopilov he was getting dropped in round one, and he kind of struggled to kind of read the range of Kopilov's striking. But yeah, overall though, I like his kickboxing. He's technically refined in this area. Feels dangerous. He's just one of those guys who just kind of always feel like, yeah, Almeida's live for a knockout. Those ground games just a complete joke. Very, very weak defensive grappling. Poor off his back. Even though it's improving, you could just tell he's not lifelong trained. While with his kickboxing, you're like, yeah, this guy's been training kickboxing for at least a few years. But with the MMA grappling aspect, you can see it just lacks that kind of fluidity. So Razak on the other hand, explosive kind of power striker, the swinger, really, really goes for it. Got heavy hands. He tries to fight a lot more kind of calm, composed in switching camps, but he's always got to keep it in your mind that he's very, very prone to slowing down, drilling and dumping, which always kind of makes me nervous about kind of backing him, betting him, picking him. So in this fight here, if Razak's smart or has any brain cells, he's gonna at least mix up some clinch, some wrestling. I'm not saying come out gate, shoot straight away. But, you've got to kind of mix it up a little bit, right? You've got to kind of push Almeida up against the fence, mix up a little bit of wrestling. Because, when it comes to the striking, I think you've got to kind of favour Almeida. It's just a pure kickboxing fight inside the MMA cage. Even though Razak's got big, big power, he can definitely live just stun Almeida. Always got that danger factor. Just kind of have to lean towards Almeida's kind of kickboxing prowess. And, that's Almeida's comfort zone. He's got more tools on the feet. So, yeah. Overall, I do kind of have to lean towards Almeida. But, let's look at the line. He's a big, big favourite. He's 1.33. It's quite a steep line. You're not getting any discounts. The thing about Almeida, I just can't put my finger on it, but he just kind of gives me that kind of gut feeling. Obviously, have to kind of favor him in a kickboxing fight, but if Razak's just able to kind of bulldoze his way, maybe gets like a trip takedown, ends up on top, then you could really be sweating a minus 300 against round 3 against Buckley. Looked heavy on top, and he was landing some heavy shots from there. Almeida's he's very weak off his back, but yeah, I think I'd prefer Almeida around kind of that 1.40 range. I think the line's gone. I think the money will keep coming in on Almeida. At the same time, I'm not too passionate about betting Razak, just because I have to favour Almeida in a kickboxing fight. Zach's not a guy that I really always like betting backing against, especially against a dangerous kickboxer. And with Almeida, I can't put my finger on it, but I just have a bad gut feeling about him. Obviously, from a live betting perspective, you kind of want to see if maybe Almeida's a good live bet. Zach comes out really strong, looks like it's tiring, then you might want to live bet Almeida. But I think the book is probably switched on. But yeah, overall, I kind of have to lean towards Almeida a bit because of his kickboxing, but from a betting perspective, just not really seeing a big margin at current odds. So next bout here, we got Chris Curtis versus Roman Kopylov. Now, Curtis, he fought 5 months ago against B. Allen. Excuse me. Now, that was a really good performance. Good fight overall. But what worries me about Curtis is that fight, he hurt like his knee or something like that right at the end. And you can see he's visibly hurt from it. He's a fighter who's 37 now. So we don't know what kind of that's going to take a toll on his career going forwards. That could be maybe like just a little push towards the kind of career end. I can't find the term that I want to use, but yeah, didn't like that injury. So Curtis, he's southpaw. I think most of us know about Curtis. Southpaw, heavy boxing approach. I think his boxing's solid. I think he's got quite heavy hands. He can throw a ton of strikes. Best being the one coming forwards. He's very kind of one-dimensional with his approach, but it's effective. But you've seen kind of the limitations to his game with a lot like losses against like kind of Joker, where Joker just danced around him. And actually, that's a good point. I think his footwork's not kind of the best. I think if you're a fighter who can stick and move, I feel like you can do quite well against Curtis. Defensive grappling's been solid historically. He's hard to hold down, hard to take down. Kopylov on the other hand, definitely a guy who's been making improvements to his fighting game. He looks much faster, much more technical. Looks a lot more sharper compared to just a couple fights ago. Got a lot of nice strikes coming from Southpaw. He's got a really kind of like fast, sharp, quick high kick to the body, to the head. Really like that. He's got a really nice 1-2. And yeah, I definitely feel like he's someone who's been coming to his own overall as a fighter. Definitely been seeing developments, been seeing the improvements that he's been making inside the cage. I think he's starting to peak. I think Curtis is probably starting to be on the decline. So I imagine Curtis, he's going to be coming forwards. He's going to try and put the pressure on Kopylov, probably try and test that gas tank of Kopylov, take this fight into round 2, round 3. But I'm not 100% convinced with Kopylov's cardio and his gas tank. I think at this stage of their careers, I think Kopylov is just fresher, quicker, sharper. While obviously Curtis has got that experience and the durability and the kind of, not the durability, but the kind of the experience, the kind of, and what's the time I'm looking for? He's got 31 fights, 31 wins, 11 losses. He's been there, done it, right? So this fight here, I have to lean towards Kopylov. That's just what that's telling me. That's telling me that Curtis is probably kind of on the way out. And yes, Kopylov just feel like he's starting to really come to his own. Obviously, I do think he has some weaknesses to his game. I don't think he's a perfect fighter by any means. And if Curtis is able to take the fight into round 2, round 3, really make it work, then I feel like he could have some success. But I just think Kopylov at this stage of their careers, sharper, quicker, fresher. I just think he's on the rise while Curtis is on the decline. So I have to lean towards Kopylov here from a betting perspective. Let's see if I can open up. So current odds around 1.41. Don't feel like you're getting any real value betting line. I think the betting line's fair, in my opinion. I think it's fair. I've seen some people on the Curtis side go sharp. But I can see where you guys are coming from. I'm not willing to completely write off Curtis at all. Because he only fought 5 months ago. That was a strong performance, I felt. And he's been there, done it. And Curtis is always game. He can pack a punch, got good boxing fundamentals, but I have to kind of lean towards Kopylov being sharper, faster, younger. I want to put my house on it. Let's put it like that. Before we go into the main event of the evening, first of all, I want to send a massive shout out to everyone who's been watching until this